So am I audible?
Yes. You can start, Tanisha.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible. You can start.
So satellite imagery in general means that the imagery has facial information in it. So it's a small part of the huge domain which we call it as remote sensing. So remote sensing basically means that we are sensing the various inputs from the environment without physically touching them. For example, we have a camera, so we are taking pictures, but we are not physically in contact with the person or uh, with the person or with the environment, but we can take the pictures through our camera. So that is an example of remote sensing. So satellite imagery is a part of remote sensing, which enables us to take information outside the earth, or which we can call it as the space. So this is needed when there are many purposes of satellite imagery. When suppose we need to know about the weather conditions, we can't do that when we are on Earth. So if we go outside our Earth, that is in space, we can use the satellites to capture the information from space itself. So the images which are taken from above are called raster images. So raster images are basically we have like this, a box like this, and we are dividing the boxes into several rows and columns. So raster images are the names of the images which are given to the pixel based images. So here one cell represents one pixel. So like this, the images are captured from the space, and these images not only lie in a single channel, but they consist of many channels. This can be RGB or infrared or mid-infrared. So satellite images are used to capture this type of images. Unlike the LiDAR images are more of like we have a LiDAR sensor here, and so it consists of many lasers. And suppose we have a terrain here. So the lasers basically point it into the terrain, and it captures the images of those terrains. So these are basically vector-based images. These are not raster images, because these are only picking up the points from here, and from here. So these are the two types of images, and in this we will be dealing with mainly with raster images. So,
Tanisha, there is some disturbance. So what's going on? I think she's trying to fix that. I sent her a WhatsApp. Maybe there is some background family noise. Yeah, she wrote me a message saying she's getting that noise fixed. Coming back in a minute. Problems of working from home and working with the rest of the family around. So it's not just you doing the webinar, your whole family is part of your webinar, whether you like it or not.
The imagery has some spatial information in it, which are the images taken from the satellite above. These are geographical data. That means it covers the land, the oceans, and everything that is seen above from the space. And it also depicts some objects like roads, cars, and all. And it contains specially relevant metadata, which can be used for weather analysis. And it has some coordinate reference system. That means it has where the location is situated. For example, it can have the coordinate systems of whether how much it is to north or how much it is to west or east. So, and these are raster images, which means this contains basically pixelated images, and each pixel in a box has some relevant information in it. And lighter data sets are basically like those contain sensors which have lasers. So which the lasers are used to collect information from the terrain. Suppose we have terrains like this. So there is a LiDAR sensor. So basically it throws lasers on those points, and then information is collected from these points. So these are basically vector images. These are not raster images. But in this session, we will be dealing with raster images. So the purpose of satellite imagery analysis is this. One of them is object detection, like can be used to detect various objects like the buildings, the planes, the vehicles, or the valleys, etc. Image segmentation can be used to differentiate between various parts. Like suppose we have this image. So suppose this is agricultural land. This is water. This is barren land. So what image segmentation is, this will provide various colors to various parts of a raster image depending on the similarity. Like for example, for agriculture, it can give green color. For water, it can segment it into blue color. And similarly for land also, it can segment it into brown color. And it is also used for land use and land cover classification, which is used to differentiate between various land types, whether the land is used or whether the land is covered, or whether the land is barren or not. For example, it is used in deforestation detection, which comes under change detection. Suppose few years earlier it was full of trees, so that area will be that area will have a different color while doing the analysis, and after a few years when it has been deforested, it will have a different type of color. So we will see that sometime later. Next is extracting mineral deposits with remote sensing based spectral analysis. So spectral analysis is collecting information from various colors in the spectrum, which can be in the visible range or in the electromagnetic range, or in the infrared range or in the mid infrared range. So these are used to collect information about various minerals which imply to different colors in the spectrum itself. Next is disaster mitigation planning and recovery. So, for example, as I have mentioned earlier also, suppose the weather changes, uh, suppose there's a hurricane or a cyclone coming very soon. So, what we can do is we can collect the raster images and we can collect the information from that. What is the speed of the hurricane or the cyclone, or in which direction it is moving? All that information can be we can gain from this type of analysis. Last is providing a base map for graphical reference and assisting planners and engineers. So as we get a view from the space, we can use it for basic planning, like the engineers do for a particular place, and also we can get the coordinates and all if we are planning to build something on a particular place. At that time also the raster images can be used. Also at that time the raster images can be collected via the airplanes, necessarily not satellites, because satellites can't it will need a very good resolution to collect it, so aircraft can do the job of collecting this type of information. So that also comes under raster images. So this is distinguishing grass from astroturf with infrared reflectivity. So basically here is the normal image under visible range. You can see that these are the grass, these are the trees and all. And when it is viewed under the satellite image, it can we can see that the infrared region is reflecting the grass area more. That means the green color has absorbed the infrared regions. So we can see the various grasslands or various area covered with trees and grass, which is due to because the green color has absorbed the infrared region most in the whole spectrum. So this is one of the applications of satellite imagery. Next is deforestation. As I have mentioned earlier also, here we can see that this is the vegetation area of Brazilian rainforest in 1975. So as the green color absorbs the infrared region more, so we can see that there are more number of forest greenery in this map, and the blue color is the land occupied by the man, by the humans. So we can see here that there is very little area occupied by the humans, but in the year 1992 we can see that this area is no longer much covered by the grasslands, but in fact it's we can see that it's mostly covered with human settlements. So here we can distinguish between these two images and we can say that deforestation has occurred, and this type of detection is called change detection, which helps us to detect the changes over a span of some years. So this is also one of the applications. Next is also desertification. Here we can see that the desert is seen by the yellow color here, and the road is seen by the blue color. So in the year 1990, you can see that desertification has covered much of the area, so has reduced the area which was under road earlier in 1972. So this is also visible or analyzed by the raster images which are collected by the satellites. Now we are coming to types of resolution. So as we talk about images, for example, we can take the example of the camera itself. So we say that this camera has this amount of resolution, this amount of megapixels. Similarly, we can also define the resolutions of the satellite cameras that are used above. First is spatial resolution. So this refers that what is the measurement of one pixel on the ground itself. So suppose we have a camera with a spatial resolution of, that is the cameras used in the satellites. Suppose we have a camera with a spatial resolution of 10 meters, which is a very high resolution camera. So suppose we have a football ground here. So suppose earlier the spatial resolution was 100 meters. So the camera will take this whole football ground. Suppose if the football ground has measurement of 100 meters, then it will take the whole football ground image in one cell of the raster images. Suppose this is a raster image. So this one cell here will contain this image. But what we can say is, even if the resolution here is 100 meters, so the image that will be visible to us will be this ground itself, but we won't be able to see that these are the lines on the ground. Basically, we won't be able to identify that is a football ground. So suppose we change the resolution to 10 meters. So the camera will take images like this. Suppose this is a satellite. So it will take images from here. Basically, it will take 10 by 10 images of this football ground. So it will cover all the details of the ground. Basically, we will be able to see the lines here, the net here on the both sides, the area around the football ground. So it's better to have a spatial resolution 10 meter than it's to have 100-meter spatial resolution. Next is the radiometric resolution. So radiometric resolution, what it does is it takes the light coming from, it senses or it's sensitive to the light that is coming from various parts of the images, and it gives certain values to the places from which light is coming. Suppose if we have a poor radiometric resolution, so it will only assign 0 or 1 to the images. Suppose if light is coming from that region, it will give a value of 0, or if the light isn't coming from that region, it will give a value of 1. So basically, even we have a spatial resolution of 10 meter, it won't affect much, because the light which we are measuring using the radiometric resolution, it will only provide us with black and white images. So if we increase the radiometric resolution to 8 bits, suppose it will take values in the range of 0 to 255, then we can assign different values between 0 to 255, and at that time we will get more meaningful images instead of getting black and white images. Next is the spectral resolution. It refers to the ability of a satellite sensor to measure specific wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum. So as we know that images are not black and white from space, as we see Earth from the space. So we also need to identify which regions are red or which regions are blue. or which regions are yellow, green, like that. So for that we use spectral resolution. So it refers to the ability of a satellite sensor to measure specific wavelengths. So as we know in a spectrum that the red has a different wavelength, the blue has a different wavelength. So the spectral resolution, what it does it is it measures the different wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum, and then we can see the images in various colors. We can see the agricultural lands in green color. We can see the oceans in blue color. We can see the forest or the barren lands in brown color. So like that, for that spectral resolution is used. And temporal resolution, it basically defines like we have an area like this. So the camera, suppose the satellite is at this place of the earth, is above this place. So temporal resolution specifies the length of the time it will take for the satellite to be able to image the same area again. So it basically is the time between the next visit of the satellite over the same place. So if it's longer, then we would be getting lesser images of the same place in a shorter duration of time. So if it should be within a specific range. For example, if the weather is changing daily, so we need if the weather is changing rapidly over a few over one place from few days. So basically we can't have a temporal resolution of 16 days or so. So we need a much lesser resolution of temporal. So it's adjusted according to the needs of the conditions or of the situations we need to analyze. So next we see here quality of sensors in terms of the spatial resolution. So the low spatial resolutions have approximately 1 kilometer or more. Examples are the MODIS and the NVSat. These are all satellites which were launched by the USA or the Soviet Union. Next is the medium resolution systems, which are approximately 100 meter to 1 kilometer. Examples are Landsat 5, which was launched by USA back in 1970s. And next, after which the latest one is the Landsat 8, and next is the Aster satellite. The higher resolution systems are 5 meter to 100 meter approx. And for very high resolution systems, we have approx 5 meter or less, which can give us very detailed explanation or very detailed information of the raster images. Next is the type of remote sensing systems. So we have two types here, active and passive. Active sensors provide their own source of energy to illuminate objects they observe. For example, radar or sonar or the LiDAR. So they use their own light to detect the objects below them. An active sensor emits radiation in the direction of the target to be investigated. So the active sensor emits radiation directly on the object of interest. The sensor then detects and measures the radiations that is reflected or backscattered from the target. So it detects the amount of radiation or amount of intensity of light that is coming from a particular object. Basically, it uses its own light instead of taking the help of any other secondary source of light. And the passive sensors they have no emitter. So they collect EM radiations that has been reflected from other satellites. For example, satellites use the energy or the light coming from the sun, that is the solar radiations. It uses that radiation to give us images from space because it doesn't have its emitter of its own. our eyes are also a type of passive remote sensing system because our eyes don't have uh, the light of their own. They take the light from the surroundings, which are reflected by the objects then, after which we can see the objects around us. Sensors used in satellite imagery. So here there are many sensors. So I've listed three types here. Radar imaging sensors. They are used for detecting or locating, tracking, and recognizing objects of various kinds at considerable distances. So it operates by transmitting electromagnetic energy towards the objects, commonly referred to as targets, and observing the echoes return from them. So it basically detects the it basically transmits the electromagnetic radiations, and then after radiation which is reflected back from the object, that is used to generate images by the radar imaging sensors. Or it also uses the echoes returning from them. Thermal IR imaging sensors. So as the name suggests, it uses infrared sensors for detecting the surface temperature of the first object in its line of sight. Point one at a wall or other solid surfaces, and it will register the heat being radiated outward by that surface. So basically, it operates on heat. It basically measures the heat on a particular object and then analyzes that to generate various images according to the needs. Next is optical imaging sensors. The basic purpose of an optical image sensor is to convert light to electrical signals. They form images of the Earth's surface by detecting the solar radiation reflected from targets on the ground. So these are used in satellites mainly because they are converting the light. For example, the light from coming from the light that we are getting from solar radiations. We are using that to form images of the Earth's surface. Just above that, by detecting the solar radiation reflected from the targets on the ground. So basically, the sun's radiation is reflected. The sun's radiation falls on the surface of the Earth, and from that, the light which is reflected from there is detected by the optical imaging sensors, after which the image is generated. Panoramic sensors. Sensors are widely used. These have a single lens camera. This camera consists of visual optics which focus on a CCD array. The CCD array converts the light falling onto it to voltage, which is then sampled and quantized to get the actual bit stream, which represents the picture in the digital form. So basically, the panoramic camera is used to get a panoramic image is used when we have large amounts of light coming from a place. So the CCD array is responsible for tracking or detecting that huge amount of light. Yeah, yeah, we are coming to that. It's actually it's needed to make like understand the use of this because AI comes just at the end part because this is how the data is generated. So if we know how the data is generated, then only we can use the AI to detect changes or the various uh, purposes like image segmentation and all. So AI comes in the later part. Basically, first comes the image generation part. Am I clear with this? Okay. So panoramic camera is used to detect the objects which generate huge amount of light. So at that time we use the panoramic camera. The optical scanner. So there's a difference between camera and scanner. Scanner uses the it usually detects or gives images in the 2D form, but the camera gives images in the 3D form. So that's the difference between the camera and the scanner. So they work on similar principles as digital cameras, as I said. So optical scanners measure the intensity of light as same as the cameras do. They also measure the intensity of light reflected off or emitted by oceans, atmosphere, and land. However, unlike most commercial digital cameras, which are limited to the visible part of the spectrum, optical scanners can create images of Earth in wavelengths of light that cannot be seen with human eye. So basically, the optical scanners can be used to detect the light in the region that suppose ultraviolet, which can't be seen with human eye. So that's the difference between the camera and the optical scanner. Though both are doing the same job, but the scanner is also used to detect the color in the spectrum which are not visible to the human eye. Last one is the microwave radiometer. So this basically measures the intensity of electromagnetic waves to determine the characteristics of the underlying surfaces like soil moisture, vegetation cover parameters, and sea surface salinity. So these are basically used to suppose we need to study about the ocean beds. So for that, the microwave radiometer is used because the bed consists of many types of minerals or many types of organisms. So as light falls on them, they reflect the light back from which we can collect various information about the ocean beds and can be further analyzed. Kinds of satellite. There are different kinds of satellite designed for many different purposes, but they can be grouped like this. The weather and atmosphere monitoring, which can be used for monitoring the weather conditions, the changing weather conditions. Next is the Earth observation and mapping. So basically, this is used for observing various various conditions or situations related to Earth, like the auras. Next is the astronomical and planetary exploration. So this can be used for suppose we can use it for detecting exoplanets or for detecting other exosystems like double star systems or black holes or like that. Uh, Next is for communication. Obviously, we need satellites for communication. Without uh, them, communication wouldn't have progressed so far because there are varieties of satellites over our Earth which are making every type of communication possible. Next is the GPS system, with which we find or we are able to find several locations. Next is the military. For military navigation, satellites are used for navigating them on combat operations, etc. Next, these are some of the popular satellites. Uh, Here, uh, this is Landsat, which was launched by USA. This was for panchromatic and multispectral sensor. So this can take images in many spectrums apart from RGB. Height of orbit. This tells us how much above is the satellite above our Earth. So this can be in any orbit. There are many types of orbit. So this defines the height of the satellite from above the Earth. The swipe kilometer is the amount of uh, area our satellite covers at a particular amount of time, and revisit day is uh, after how many days it revisits the same place. Channels are the color channels that are used to generate images. Similarly, we have SPOT, which was also developed by USA. It has a imaging spectral radiometer, as we said, which are used to detect underlying characteristics of various regions. And they have channels of panochromatic BGR and near infrared. Next is ERS, which was developed by European Space Agency. We have IR radiometer, microwave sounder, radiometer, and SAR. Next, we have radar sat, which was developed by Canada. Next, we have MODIS, which was developed by USA. Like this, we have. So these are the different type of bands used by the cameras to generate images. So these are the some of the data which we can use to analyze the images for various purposes. This land viewer is a free GIS database. GIS means uh, geospatial database, which can with an easy to master interface. Basically, this is an interface which can be used to visualize various data from the satellites. It also allows high resolution satellite imagery free previews. Next is the Copernicus Open Access Hub. Formerly, it was called as Sentinel Scientific Data Hub. It is able to quench anyone's thirst for the Sentinel data set. The Sentinel was a satellite which was also used to collect similar images as the Landsat does. Sentinel Hub is another open source satellite data which provides access to a wide range of open source satellite imagery via its two services, that is EO browser and the Sentinel playground, where we can play with the images, we can change the colors of the images to see it in various parts of the spectrum. Next is the NASA Earth Data Search, which provides online access to multiple collections of NASA's EOSDIS data, which is Earth Observing System Data Information System. Here we come into the AI applications. So basically, AI applications here can be divided into two parts. First is the one-step satellite data applications. The first applications of data is making the various objects detectable to computer vision. So here we use computer vision to detect various objects like the buildings, the road segments, the cars, the urban areas, the that is important to the municipalities or the government agencies, the rescue teams, also for the military and other civil agencies. And such things can easily be monitored from space through images, as we have seen earlier also, from high resolution cameras, obviously. And the second type is the multi-level data applications. So this basically includes the satellite images which are used to do more complex tasks. These were just one task like uh, of detecting buildings or detecting the roads or segmenting them into agricultural lands or forest lands. But this includes multi-level data applications from counting the cars at parking lots from crop yield to see how much the crop has yield over a few years, and the geosensing in agricultural fields to gain various information about the agricultural fields. Next, we can also satellite imagery can provide the valuable inputs for machine learning and AI models. So the automated algorithms can accurately detect various things visible on the Earth from the space. We can also detect the UFOs, that is unidentified flying objects, using this data. Here comes the spectral difference. So, spectral difference is a measure of how much energy a surface reflects at a specific wavelength. Many surfaces reflect a different amount of energy in different portions of the spectrum. So, here you can see that here the blue line represents the water, the green represents the vegetation, and the brown line represents the bare soil. So here we can see that the in the blue region, that is the water, the line here the water is being represented in all the regions equally in the RGB channel, but it didn't absorb much radiations from the near infrared region. Next, if we see the vegetation region, we can see that it has absorbed, the pic shows here that it has absorbed the near infrared region much more than any of the other channels. So that is why the grasslands appear red from above the space. Next, for the dry bare soil area, we can see that it has almost absorbed equal amounts of light from the various regions in the spectrum. So this is an image by the Landsat satellite. So here we can see the same regions but in different bands of the spectrum. So here the bands are blue, green and red. Here you can see that green, red and near infrared. Here the bands are green, infrared and short wave infrared. So these are the images taken from the Landsat satellite in the various bands. As we have also seen that it consists of 7 to 11 channels. So these are the different images in different bands captured by the Landsat satellite. Okay, so now I will be showing the code part. In this, we'll be classifying it into four classes. That is the grasslands, the barren lands, the water, and other areas. So these are the images collected from DeepSat, which is a framework used for satellite imagery. So I will be downloading it from Tag.
Hi, Tanisha. Can you hear me?
So this mainly consists of the test and the training images, which are in the CSV format because it contains the values of the images in the CSV format instead of the. So I will just walk through the code because it's going to take longer time. So these are the libraries needed. We are using pandas to import this setting it to a NumPy array so that we can fit it into the deep learning model. This is the shape of the image. That is, it contains this. The first value is the number of images, and the second is the product of the shape, that is XY, and the number of channels used. So here I have reshaped it into the number of images, the pixel length, the image length, the height, and the number of channels, that is 4. This is the test train test split. This is the shape of the training and test images. And here I am normalizing it. So I have 4 labels: the barren land, the forest land, the grassland, and others. So here this is the image of a forest land. Here we can see some amount of green pixels. It defines that there are some areas of forest land. This is the model which was used to train this. This is the input shape, and this is the model summary. So it was trained on 20 epochs. Let's save the model. Just upload it. This is the classification report, which shows an accuracy of 98%. And this is the predicted label, that is a grassland, and this is the actual label. So here we are squeezing it to RGB channels. so that we can view it into the RGB mode only. So it has correctly predicted it. It's matching with the actual label.
I think Tanisha's screen is frozen. I sent her a message. Yeah, now it's moving. Now it is moving.
So this is the predicted label and this is the actual label.
Okay, audience. So I think that ends the session. And uh, I know we had some network issues, but it was very interesting concept and good subject matter expertise. In the satellite space. I hope you enjoyed it to the extent the network permitted, and that is the perils of current times. So, but the topic is interesting, and hopefully we'll have Tanisha come back with more interesting stuff on satellite communications and satellite imagery and remote sensing analysis. Uh, okay, so with that, thank you all for joining, and I'll discuss with Tanisha how we can try to improve the network bandwidth from her location in for future webinars. So thank you all for joining. Have a good day or good night as the case may be.